Hey everybody, Jason Shadrick here with Premier Guitar, and we're in Premier Guitar headquarters for another episode with one of our favorite guitar players who came to town, Zach, right? Is that your name?
Yes.
Zach?
Yeah.
Zach?
You're
okay.
just saying that because I'm here.
Plays in a band called Shinedown, some of you might have heard, and big thanks to PRS for sponsoring this episode. And we are definitely going to talk about this as well. So welcome, Zach. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
So we kind of we got to talking so much before the camera started rolling, we had to just like, okay, stop. We got to save some of this stuff.
It's not gonna happen now. I'm gonna be clammy, and I'm not gonna talk about anything.
Haha.
So it's gonna happen.
So what a lot of people might not know is that you did not start out as big modern rock guy. You were kind of a blues kid. Right?
There was no kind of. Yeah, I was.
Growing up in Memphis.
I grew up in Memphis on Beale Street, playing with those guys and up and down Beale Street, and that's kind of how I got started. You know, blues was kind of the first thing that, like, I loved music, right, as a kid, but blues was the first thing I felt, or I was like something that physically moved my body. Mm-hmm. You know, and that to me that was kind of like, all right, this is what I want to do. You know, I loved Zeppelin and I loved like Page and Plant and stuff like that, but I don't think that was me. Was that my phone?
It's the Blues Police calling.
It was. I'm gonna. That wasn't my phone, but my ringer's okay. My ringer's off. Just making sure.
So when you were a kid, was there a time where there was an album that really kind of made something click for you? Was it the blues music that made you want to play guitar, or did you get into guitar and then kind of stumbled upon blues music?
Yeah. So I was at home in an apartment, and there was apartments called oh man, I want to say not Country Square. I don't remember the name of the apartments that I lived in, but I got a guitar for my 12th birthday,
and it was a
Series 10, that was the name of the company, and it was like a Strat copy, but it had like a Kramer like headstock, so it was like black Strat 5-way. Maple neck, maple board, and like this ugly it wasn't even like Kramer headstocks are cool. This
almost
was
like a hockey stick looking.
Yeah, like a hockey stick.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the best way I've ever heard it described. And so it set in my closet from 12 to 13 basically. So funny story, and I've told this before, but I didn't know I was supposed to put my left hand on the guitar. And I was actually like a smart kid, so you'd think that I would like even put common sense, I would just go like this. So kind of like how like James Hetfield probably wrote "Nothing Else Matters," you know, just like, oh yeah, hey mom, like how's it going? Like, yeah, I'll be home for dinner, you know, like so that to me like that's kind of how I thought you were supposed to do it. And then I was at home, I was about to turn 13, and I'm old, but I'm also young in a way. So Machine Head, they premiered the video for Machine Head by Bush. I was almost 13, and they were playing live, and I saw them do and I went in my closet. I was like, wow. First off, it was these guys look cool.
Yeah.
So I went in my closet and I got the guitar, which was probably in 11 different tunings at the same time, and I watched his hands, and I kind of started doing that. Like, never even put this hand on a guitar before.
Right.
Not saying like I played it right, I probably didn't, but I was like, this is what I want to do. So then I got lessons, and I started lessons anyway, and then from a guy named Rick Forbes in Memphis, Tennessee, who still teaches lessons to this day. And if you do live in Memphis, he would be the guy to go see. He's still probably one of my favorite guitar players of all time.
And did you ask for a guitar from your parents to get that guitar, or did they just like, hey?
I actually don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know if I wanted one or not. I remember I went. You know, I think I did because I went to see Page and Plant. I believe I was 11 or 12, and I was like, I want to do that. And then I got it, and I was like,
so we're like 95, 96 when alt rock was huge.
Yeah, this would have been 94.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when did blues music come in? So you saw Bush, you're trying to rock out like Gavin. When did the blues come into the scene?
I had heard B.B. King in my mom's car. We used to have a cabin in not Spring River, somewhere in Arkansas. And we were driving there, and I heard B.B. King, and I heard Thrill Is Gone. And I was like, wow. And it was like a 2 for Tuesday type thing. So then they played, that's what they, like, what, the goofy things they used to do on FM radio. And then they played When Love Comes to Town by U2 and B.B. King. And I remember hearing that guitar, and I was like, not even knowing it was, I knew it was a guitar because I had started playing guitar by that point. But I was like, what is that? And why is it making that noise? And
the vibrato?
Yeah, the vibrato. Yeah. And exactly. And for me, I was like, I want to do that. And then I was home, and my friend Joseph, his dad was a blues fan, and he had on Stevie Ray Vaughan, Austin City Limits on VHS.
Which one?
The first one where he's coked out of his mind. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh my God. This guy, like, this is like what I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then to me, like, it's kind of a testament to him, because if you watch the one where he's like completely sober, it's like he's so much better. Yeah. You're like, wow, this guy's like.
But by the time the first one aired, nobody knew it could get better, I guess.
Yeah. Well, of course, because it couldn't. He was so good, and it was this ferociousness of what he was doing. It wasn't just like this guy playing guitar. It was like, it was a sport. He was like, his body was in this. Like he was invested, and I was like,
you feel like you have to train for something like that.
Yeah, like I mean, I was a kid, so I was like, man, he's getting into it. That's why he's sweating. Not to mention he was on massive amounts of drugs at the time. But I was just like, man, this guy is like, I don't know what this is, but that's what I want to do. And that's kind of where it started for me. And then I started going down to Beale Street and doing that.
And you see, like, live to El Macambo, and the sweat is just like dripping off of everything.
Talk about doing drugs. Yeah, that's, I would read interviews with, I don't know if Caesar was his tech during El Macambo or Renee, but I remember reading an interview with one of them where he was like, he had like a shot glass in the back with like, Jesus, like I can't imagine like doing that, but it's like, he still played great. But then, like I said, you see that 89 Austin City Limits where he's sober, and you're like, all right, this guy's like, this is the top of the game right here.
Yeah, right. So when you're kind of the early teenage years and you have these varied influences coming around, were your parents music people? Did they play a lot of music around the house?
Yeah, my parents always listened to music, but I'm the only musician in my whole family. Like no one ever like. Not that I even know of anybody played an instrument. I think my aunt played piano, but no one was ever a musician.
Mm-hmm. So what else were you listening to at that time other than Stevie Ray Vaughan and Bush?
When you put it on the spectrum like that. I loved Zeppelin. I loved U2. I was a huge U2 fan. Kind of the same time I discovered B.B. King is when I discovered U2, because I loved
That's an interesting gateway to discover U2 through B.B. King, you know?
That was for me, but that's how it happened,
Especially for young kids.
U2's my favorite band of all time now at this state in my life, and has been for the last probably 15 years. So I was listening to that. It was that time of the post-grunge pop, rock. So I guess it was still a little bit of grunge. So I loved Bush, I loved Nirvana, I loved Collective Soul, I loved the Counting Crows. Mm-hmm. So at these times where I was discovering these guitar players that I thought Ross Childress from Collective Soul was a massively underrated guitar player. I was also discovering bands like Counting Crows and people like Rob Thomas who were songwriters, because I never just wanted to be a guitar player. I toured with B.B. King when I was 15, and I remember on my birthday, I believe I was turning 16. We were in his dressing room, and he said, you're really good at what you do, and he goes, and this is a cute thing. He goes, until your 18th birthday. And that hit me really hard. And he wasn't trying to be mean. He was just saying, when you turn 18, you're an adult. You know how many adults are good at guitar?
Yeah, right. You're in like a different,
But when you're a kid and you're good, oh my gosh, if YouTube, even if the internet wasn't even around, but if that would have been around then, it would have been like, I would have been like this YouTube kid or something. It was like, it's cute, but you know what? When you're 18, there's a million other adult guitar players who are way better than you. And he's right. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm never going to be this like shredder fast guy. That's not how I play. That's not how, I don't have synesthesia where I see notes, but when I close my eyes and I play music, I know where I'm going. You know, it's kind of a conduit through me where I know what notes I'm going to pick. But in a way, I was like, I'm never going to be this guy who's this shred kind of guy. I'm a note choice kind of guy. BB always used to say, it's not about where you play, it's about where you don't play. And so I took all those lessons that I got from those guys, you know, playing with Kenny Wayne Shepherd when I was 15, playing with BB, playing with Johnny, and all these guys, and I was like, I need to learn how to write songs. And that's when it started transitioning for me. So like 17, 18, I started being a songwriter.
So what was the path like between you're 12 or 13 and you're like, I didn't even know there's another side to this coin by putting my hand, to 3 years later you're opening for B.B. King. How did that happen?
I got signed when I was 14. So guitar was the only thing in my life that I picked up fast, right? So I played sports, horrible.
What sports?
I played soccer, baseball, and basketball. My brothers were all sports guys, right? So like great. Like my brother still plays sports to this day. My stepdad's in the softball Hall of Fame. Like, you know, like all they do is play sports.
I was gonna say, you and I are like similar heights, so I think basketball, that probably maybe.
I'm actually good at basketball now as an adult. As a kid, though, I was like really small. And I think my oldest son's gonna be the same way. But so for me, guitar was the only thing I picked up where like, if I tried to do it, it happened. You know what I mean? Like baseball, try and try.
Yeah.
And the same result. Guitar, I'd pick it up. And the first song I really learned how to play, it was like Purple Haze. So like I would do, you know, my version, I guess, but doing whatever, and I could do these chords like in like little notes and stuff. And but I couldn't like go like this. You know, I couldn't like my hands were too small.
Huh, okay.
You know, so for me, like, I had to learn how to play lead first. So that's where this whole blues thing came from too.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't just like sit around and be Bob Dylan and strum chords like I really kind of wanted to. But that's kind of where I learned how to play lead. And
because the harmony is so simple to approach.
Yeah.
And in a way, you can be like, here, you know this scale, go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you kind of have this freedom to...
Yeah, once I learned the pentatonic scale, it was like, oh, wow, I'm kind of off to a start here. And that's kind of where it started. And then I got signed when I was 14, and I started touring, and it was off at that point, you know.
And were you frontman and lead guitar player and the whole deal?
Zach Meyer's band. It was me, a guy named Michael Mo Morales, who was older than me by, I mean, probably 15 years, 12 years. And then my drummer was Garrett Marshall, who was probably 5 years older than me. And his dad was Bill Marshall, who played in Hank Williams Jr.'s band for years and years. So that was the band, and we toured all over. We did 2 European tours. We did a bunch of U.S. tours.
And was it around that time were you still going to high school at this time? And
I started homeschooling.
you started homeschooling?
I went to school up until middle school.
Up until middle school, yeah. And then you finished your degree and the whole deal?
Yep.
So it was around that time where you kind of, I imagine you and your parents were both like, well, he's going to really
make a
run, and this is going to be
it. Yeah. So I mean, and I was making a decent living as a kid, already.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't buying houses, but I could, if I needed to pay bills at 17, which I didn't because I lived with my parents, I could have. But yeah, I mean, it was very apparent, I think, I would say by 18 that I was like, this is what I'm going to do, whether it be. And then by the time I was 18, the label that we were on, I had started writing songs that weren't blues songs. They were more kind of rock leaning, songs. And they were like, well, these are great. You want us to shop these to other artists? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is the third record. Like, this is, and they were like, well, no. Like, yeah, quiet down, kid. How you get in there and you play your little guitar. And I was like, So, and when I talked to my lawyer at the time, the only way to do it was to get out of the deal was to break up the band. So I had to break up this band that I loved. And I was, I got so jaded by the business side of music, which I still am probably to this day, I guess. But I was like, you know what? I can tour and not deal with the business side of this. So I became a guitar tech. And I started doing that, and I was a tech for a while, and then I joined Shinedown when I was 21.
Wow. So what was there anything before you decided to make a career change to guitar tech? Were you always like a tinkerer and like to work on your own guitars? Or
Yeah, it was one of those things to where like there's this guy Tom Keckler in Memphis who used to work for Schecter way back in the day, and to me he's the best tech as far as like setting things up and doing like that. He's not like an amp guy. He's literally a guitar guy, and he works in Memphis. He still works to this day, and I would just watch him work on my guitars, and I would be like, man, I want to learn how to do that, so I don't have to pay you $40 every time I want to get a guitar worked on. So I just would watch him, and I would watch this guy Brent Mullins, who was Kenny Wayne's tech at the time when I was touring with Kenny Wayne, and you know, I would watch all these great techs, and I'd be like, man, I want to learn how to do that. And so I started learning how to do it, and I remember just, you know, being in my hometown, and Saliva was like, man, we need a tech, and I was like, I'll do it. So I started doing that, and then I went on for that, and I did Three Doors Down. I did Aerosmith. You know, it was cool. Yeah.
So did you feel like that career change was you needed a break from being full-time musician guy, or was it something you felt could be more fulfilling than a full-time musician?
You know what? That's actually a really good question. I don't think I thought it would be more fulfilling. I needed a break. When I get pissed off about something, it's more, especially back then, you know, you don't realize as a kid that pride comes before the fall, you know, so it was a very pride war thing where I was just like, you know, I hate the business side of this so much. I can still tour and make money and not have to deal with the people in the offices. Yeah. I can just be a guitar tech. And, you know, you know what I never was, though, that I'm actually kind of proud of myself for? I was never like the guy that was like, I can play better than this guy that I'm working for. You know, I was just like, I just did the job, man.
Yeah.
Like I came in, did the job. You know, if a dude was hungover and didn't want to come to sound check, I would play his part at sound check for him. But like, I was never that guy. Like, man, like I wish I was doing because I had already done it.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a lot of techs out there that, you know, I had a tech for years, Galen Henson, who was Joe Satriani's rhythm guitar player, who was A, one of the best techs I've ever seen, and B, one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. So like, he would line check, and I'd be like, please stop playing guitar. Like, you're so much better than me. And so, you know, it was never that sort of thing with me. I was never flashy. I would literally just be like, I had to check the guitar. Like, all right, you know, check the guitar for an hour. You good? Okay. And that would be it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was never trying to like show off. So I think I literally liked the tech aspect of it just because it was fun for me.
So you had some kind of informal apprenticeship among that guy in Memphis. When you were actually on the road as a tech, what were some of the things that you really felt you could only learn about the ins and outs of working on a guitar from that night-to-night grind of that?
You know, I don't think it was ever things that you could learn. Obviously, practice makes perfect, and when you work on something every day, you get better. You know, like deciding I needed to adjust a Les Paul bridge or do it at the neck, you know, on the truss rod. Or to me, the things I think I got better at for constant touring was working if something broke real quick. You know what I mean? So if you had to do it in a bind and really fast, you know, doing that, you know, having to change a string, having to change an input jack, literally changing an input jack during the middle of a show.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I got better on the fly with stuff, but I think just the repetition of it, you know, even if I did it every day at home, I was going to get that good working on guitars because you do it and it's a learning process and you do things like that.
Did you have any real like, oh shit moments in the middle of shows?
Yeah, I had a couple. One time, I almost dropped my guitar. There you go. It got caught on my wallet. One time, Chris from Saliva slipped on a cable that I still say that wasn't there, and he had this. Gibson used to make him these crazy customs, these Les Pauls, and this one was wine red, and his name was Chris D, and he had the Detroit D's in the neck. It was like one of my favorite guitars. It was wine red, had chrome hardware. Just a sick looking guitar. And he got pissed off and he looks at me and everybody was fucked up at the time. And so he took the guitar and he threw it behind me. Like there's no way I physically could have got to it to catch it. And it smashed. Like the head, you know, the Les Paul headstock angle. Yeah. So it went down. So I literally glued it mid-show and took a clamp and clamped it, and he played the last two songs with it.
And it was reasonably in
Yeah.
tune? Or?
I had a hair dryer. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Chris was the rhythm guitar player, and in Saliva at the time, I mean, you're the rhythm guitar. You're probably just playing the top 3 strings. You know, you're not doing too much. So, I had a hair dryer on it, and I was gluing it, and I had a clamp on it, and I gave it to him for the last. So that was cool.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah,
What did Chris think after
yeah.
after the fog cleared and he realized what had happened?
I think that when I gave it back to him for the last 2 songs, I don't think he ever thought it broke. I think he just.
I know, but like the next day.
Oh, he felt bad. He felt terrible. I mean, you know the loom, the snake cover that it's almost plastic. It's almost like what's on that patch cable. You know, do the loom covers. That on a wood floor not taped down is detrimental to your health if you step on that thing. So, but what he had thought he had tripped on that. What actually I had done was ran it around the stage, and it had come up from the front by the barricade. So there was no cable to trip on. So he felt bad about it, and then when I was working for Three Doors Down, we were at Hershey Park Stadium, and we had pyro, and in a stadium you can't, like we have concussions tonight for our pyro, right? In an arena you hang them up, usually stage right, and they're usually where they can kind of blast off the ceiling, and they have tape over them. Well, there was no ceiling at Hershey Park Stadium, so they had put them underneath the stage right. So when they went off, first song, I lost all power to my rig in the middle of a show.
Wow.
So that was one of the nightmare things that had happened. But I didn't have a lot of gig nightmares where it was like bad things that would happen.
So you're doing this tech thing for buddies, bands, and people that ask you, and word of mouth kind of spreads. When do you decide, okay, it's time for me to get back and maybe be a musician full time?
I had always had a band called The Farewell, which I had wrote for and sang with, and that was kind of like a rock band. And we had played some shows. There was one point where The Farewell was opening, Shinedown played in the middle, and then I was teching for Three Doors Down. And then in the middle of that, it was Saliva, Shinedown, Three Doors Down. And I got asked to play bass for Saliva because Dave, our bass player, was having a kid. So I started playing bass for Saliva. I'm not a bass player, but I started doing it, and the guys in Shinedown saw that, and then Brad, their bass player, was having a kid. I was almost like the maternity ward guy, all right, yeah, you're having a baby.
Call Zach.
Tag me in. I'll play an instrument that I don't play.
Yeah.
And so I started playing bass for Shinedown, and this was in November of 04, 05, and it was the last show. We were in Ybor City in Tampa, and me and Brent were walking around, and he was like, it was kind of this like soap opera, almost When Harry Meets Sally moment. And he was kind of like, I don't want you to leave. And I was like, well, you have a bass player, and secondly, I don't want to play bass. Like, I'm not a bass player. He was like, well, what if you played rhythm guitar? And this is on the first album. And I was like, I mean, I guess, but I'm like, you got to run this by your guys. Like, I'm not just going to be some guy coming in. Like, I don't need that animosity in my life. I'm kind of happy being a tech. I was working for Chris from Three Doors Down. It was a great gig. He's a great guy. So he calls me the next day after that show and was like, you got to be in the band. I was like, all right. So I just came in as a hired guy.
Yeah.
I got paid a salary. I didn't have to do meet and greets. I was like, man, this is great. Like, this is awesome. So I came in, and there was a lot of harmony stuff on the record, and Brent was the only singer. So when I came in, I could sing. So, but the animosity was still there from other guys. Not really Barry, who's still in the band to this day, but a little bit with Jason, and mostly with Brad, our bass player, because I came in and it was like, wow, here's this young guy, he sings. Oh, by the way, he's on your side of the stage. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, I would have been mad at me too. You know what I mean? Because I don't think those guys got asked properly if it was okay that I joined their band. But for as many horrible times there were back then, because listen, there's no secret that everybody was, not Barry, but everybody else was on drugs, and it was really, and I've never done a drug in my life. So for me, and I was drinking, and I wasn't a big drinker, but I was drinking just to like numb it, to like go, okay, just to keep up with what was happening. And so for me, I was just like trying to, navigate this animosity towards me from not 2 guys, but 1 guy in particular. And it just ended up coming to a head, and me and Brent just ended up talking one day when I was home, and I was like, man, I'm not going to come back. Like, I don't want to, this isn't what I signed up for. Yeah, it's just not worth the hassle. And it was a good, like, year and a half where it was a lot of fun. And then he was like, man, I don't want you to go. He's like, but I think it's for the best. I was like, all right, cool. So then, it was literally, they went and did this tour with Zombie and Godsmack, and after that, it was literally the 2 days after that tour, he's like, you got to come back. He's like, but you got to play bass right now. And I was like, all right. So I came back the next year in 2007, and I played bass, and then we regrouped, and then we had let Brad and Jason go, and we did like a tryout thing with only people we knew. It wasn't like open to the public or whatever. And then Eric came in, and Nick Perry came in, and a couple other people came in. Brian Weaver from Silvertide and came in, and we'd try out. I had a bass rig and a guitar rig there. So when a guitar player came in, because we wanted to be a 5-piece. So when a guitar player came in, I'd play bass. When a bass player came in, I'd play guitar, and I'd just switch back and forth. And Eric came in and brought both, actually, which not a lot of people know. Eric brought a Les Paul in and a bass.
Oh, wow.
And he played bass first, which he probably hates that to this day, deep down. Because once he played bass, we were like, that's the dude. Yeah. And then Nick came in and played guitar, and we were like, wow, this is going to be cool, man. Because I had known Nick since I was 14, you know, actually 16, because we would play up east with like Hailstorm and Silvertide right when Silvertide got signed. And I remember we rehearsed with Nick, and Nick was great. And Nick was like, he didn't want to do it because he had just started playing with Christina, his sister, who ended up having obviously an amazing career. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do it. And then we're like, all right. And I remember we took a picture, which ended up to this day being the band, which is Brent, Eric, me, and Barry. And Brent looked so mad in it because I think he had just found out that Nick was like, we had this great tryout, you know, and it was awesome. It really clicked, you know. And Nick after that was like, yeah, I can't. Like, he came all the way down. I was like, yeah, I can't do it. And we're like, oh, man, this sucks. So, like, 2 weeks later, he calls me, and I'm like, he's like, man, let's start working on these parts. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, you said you're not doing it. And he's like, no, man, I'm all in. And in our minds, knowing our singer, we had kind of known what would happen, which was like he probably threw a bag of money at this guy and was like, let's do it. So Nick was in the band from March till October. And that was it. I mean, literally, you know, it was.
And were you still on bass this time, or you?
No, I was guitar. Me and Nick were
two guitars.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and
what was that dynamic like?
It was great because I think Nick Perry is such a great guitar player, and you know I'm bluesy and he's bluesy. Nick Perry pulls shit out of the air that I'm like, where did this like?
He's a little more shreddery than you are.
Yeah, but it's not even that. Even when he's like being traditionally bluesy, like. You know, I always say like I'm a conduit for what's coming through me, and I play. His conduit line's just a little wider than mine, I think. And so like he's just a great guitar player. So I would like listen to him night in and night out and be like, man, this guy's like really good, and he's younger than me, you know. And I was like, man, this guy's like ridiculous. Like he's so good, but it didn't last very long. I think he was never happy being in our band, and it did always feel like. It felt like the four of us and then Nick. Even from day one, it felt like that. And I think Nick would say the same thing. But Nick is an absurd guitar player, and you know, I had some of the most fun times I had. I remember like with me and that guy playing together because he's so good. And but yeah, it was never like Nick was never meant to be in Shinedown, 100%. And I think he would tell you the same thing.
Yeah. So once the core was set during this whole kind of. I don't say tumultuous, but when there's a lot of turnover.
Oh, it was tumultuous. You can say that.
Tumultuous, okay. Were you also participating in album cycles and writing and recording, or
starting at Sound of Madness? Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, yeah. So
because being in a band on the road and playing shows can be quite different than going into the studio and trying to create something from scratch. You know?
I started liking being in the studio on this last record.
The most recent one.
Yeah. Attention. I am not a studio guy. I get red light fever.
Okay.
I like to think that I'm a pretty good guitar player, and I like to think that other people think of me as a pretty good guitar player. In the studio, I would just clam up and like, and also like I said, I come from a very loose bluesy background, so like playing something the same way 5 times is not what I do. But you know what? Watching our bass player, who's one of the most talented musicians I know, do it, standing behind him, I kind of learned how to do it that way because Eric produced this album, and Eric's not only a great musician, he's an incredible producer, you know, and produced #1 songs for this band before, you know? And so watching him, I kind of learned how to do it. And also, this record was just us, no producer, no, you know, we did everything. So it was really cool to be in this, you know. We had Doug McKean, who had engineered Sound of Madness and engineered Amaryllis in there too, which was great. Who's Rob Cavallo's engineer, and you know, he engineered Black Parade and Dookie and all these things. So it was cool to have Doug in there too. But when it was just us, I felt way less pressure. I get nervous in the studio, and now I think that's kind of subsided for me.
Is it the when you get to be in a bigger band, you feel like there's more writing on each record? Yeah,
you know, the writing has always kind of been the same with us. We have a guy named Dave Bassett who we write with a lot. We call him our fifth Beatle, if we can be as pretentious to say that. And a lot of the times it'll be me, Brent, Eric, or me, Brent, Dave, or Eric, Brent, Dave, or Eric and Brent. You know, that's kind of how the writing works. Barry, our drummer, doesn't write. And he's trying to learn instruments. Like he wants to write, and I think he will be able to because he is dedicated to.
Put me in, coach. You know.
Yeah, you know, that's kind of what it is. So it's always been me, Brent, Eric is kind of the writing team, and then Dave also, and sometimes just Brent and Dave. You know, and which we like because you know we don't kill each other and.
Yeah. So on those early Shinedown records that you were on, what was kind of like the first kind of finished song that where you had like where you maybe wrote the main riff or contributed heavily to a song and it turned out to be a success for you? Do you remember that first time where you really felt?
Bully for me, because I had written on stuff before, but me and Brent and Dave wrote Bully, and I kind of came up with the riff.
Can you show us the riff?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I gotta tune down to D, Closer to the Devil, real quick. So it would have an octave pedal on, but the riff was just, Brent was humming something. He was like, It was something like that, and I kind of took that as. In our band, you know, everything kind of bases around the lyrics, you know.
Okay.
It's funny, I've done these things like this before for you guys, and like I'm not a comment reader, but like, you know, but I would read comments, and it's like I did one for Cut the Chord, I remember, and people were like, "This guy's the worst guitar player." I was like, "Listen, I'm not, like, I can play those riffs, but that's not the riffs I'm gonna write." You know what I mean? Like, and that song was a #1 song and sold millions of records, so everybody can kiss my ass who wants to make fun of my riff writing. But you know, for me, like when that riff came out, we wrote that song, and the record was done, and the A&R guy, we got an email and said, "Bully's going to be the first single."
Wow.
And I had a panic attack of all panic attacks, and I was like, "Absolutely not. This cannot be the first single." I was like, and I remember calling him, our A&R guy, the night before. I was like, "This is career suicide." Because this was the record after Sound of Madness, right?
Yeah.
So Sound of Madness was, we weren't doing our biggest business at the time, but Sound of Madness was our biggest record. You know, as far, we had 6 #1 songs on one album, which is unheard of. And I remember Bully being the first thing that people are going to hear after Sound of Madness, and I was like, "This is career suicide. It's over for us." And I wrote the song, and I'm like, "This can't happen." And I remember it sold us 120,000 records the first week. And I was like, "Oh my God, like that was when I learned to maybe stop self-doubting myself, you know, and really kind of just laying back on it. But I still, you know, as a musician,
crippling self-doubt is kind of part of the deal, right?
Crippling self-doubt is part of every musician.
Yeah.
You know, except for Yngwie Malmsteen. He seems to be, He's very confident.
And Eric Clapton, he's doing all right.
Eric Clapton's kind of a confident guy too.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna get started on it. No, it helped me with my pride in myself a little bit, because I was always kind of nervous about things like that. So that was the first riff where I was like, wow, I did it, and then it ended up being a #1 song, and it was #1 for like 16 weeks.
And I mean, when you play that riff in front of me, it's not like when you said it's not a complicated riff.
None of our riffs are complicated.
But then you got to think, not to compare you guys to like Led Zeppelin, but when you look at the intro riff, "A Whole Lot of Love," and how iconic it is, it's so simple.
And now that you mention it, it might not be far off from what I was just doing. Please don't sue me, Jimmy Page.
No, but you got to think, like when you hear something on an album or on the radio or whatever, and you kind of it hits you in a certain way, you kind of mythologize it to a certain point, and then when you learn how to play it, you're like, oh, that's how it goes. But it kind of really speaks to how important simplicity is.
I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, like when I was a kid, that the thought of the four chords. It's like, wow, that when you hear that riff, I could play that riff tonight in front of whatever 10,000 people or whatever we're playing at that place, and people are gonna start jumping immediately. That's four chords.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I from guitar purists and traditionalists, I like catch so much shit from people just because like I'm never gonna be this guy. I can do it, but I'm not gonna do it in a song because that's not gonna sell a song. Like I'm a songwriter. I'm a songwriter before I'm a guitar player. So I would love to make everyone happy and do these things, but I'm gonna leave that for the other guys, and I'm gonna write what I write, and that's kind of how I do it. Like if you look at a riff like Devil, right? So like, which is the last our first single, which is another octave song. We overuse the Digitech whammy a lot.
You're not the first one.
I know, but we don't. I'm not like with the foot pedal. Just honestly, just the effect.
Yeah.
So a riff like Devil, it's so simple.
So you have an octave low on it.
Octave
probably?
low.
Yep.
Literally, I'm on the left side.
Yep.
So. Like it's one of the most simple riffs ever, but it's what you do around it. You don't have to be, people who are listening to the radio, if you're trying to sell a song, if you're trying to be math rock, then do that.
Yeah.
Make algebra equations with the guitar. There's a spot for that. I listen to stuff like that. Periphery I love Periphery. I love Mark. I think Mark's one of the best guitar players out right now. And Misha as well, both of those guys. But it's like, and I love listening to that stuff, but I'm not going to write it. That's for them to write. Like I can't physically. I can't play that good. And B, that's not what I do. I'm a songwriter, and I'm going to write a song, but I can take this and tell Brent, or Eric can tell Brent, or Brent can tell Brent what to write over it.
Yeah.
And it can be a hit song, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like, you never know what's going to be a hit, but we try to, that song was, again, #1 for 12 weeks.
So you mentioned Bully and Devil. Is Bully the song on, when you see it on the set list, like, is there a song in the set list that as soon as you break into it, gets the biggest reaction of the night?
Get Up, the new single, actually, which doesn't even have a guitar riff. I mean, literally, the guitar in that song is so minimal, it's mostly acoustic. That song is getting an amazing reaction. But again, you know what? The thing about Get Up is you talk about, something that, to me, this is as Paul Reed Smith says, to me, this is a hammer. This is a screwdriver. This is what I use to build a house. If my part in building the house is painting it,
that's what you do.
That's what I do. If my house is framing it, then you go. If I'm framing a house, then my job is. If I'm painting the house, my job is something like in Get Up. My whole part is this. That's my whole part.
Yeah.
That's and other than in the chorus, I'm going. That's the so it's like I'm gonna play for the song. I'm never trying to be the center of attention, especially in our band. You know what I mean? Because it's about the song, and the song. Like I don't, like I said, like if I'm doing something for the house, like it's all building a house to me. This is Eric says this is a tool for him. Now I like guitars and stuff more than he does. Like I'm more of like a, he wants to beat the crap out of basses, and that's his thing because it is a hammer. That's what he. And for me, it's become the same thing for me. Like I'm gonna do whatever's best to build the house. I'm not trying to get in the way of the framers when I'm the fucking paint guy. You know what I mean? So, but when I'm the framer, I don't want the painters getting in my way either.
So who in the band is the plumber? That's my question.
Barry's the plumber because you got to have plumbing to make it all work, and I think you got to have a great drummer to make everything work.
Nobody wants to go outside.
Nobody wants to go outside and go to the bathroom.
That's right. So you mentioned Paul Reed Smith, and you are quite a PRS fan.
I am.
And so tell us a little bit about and we have your signature model sitting over there, but tell us a little bit about how that particular model came together and what you were kind of looking for in that model.
I had started playing hollow bodies. I would love to tell you why, but there's no reason. I talk about it in guitar interviews, and people go, "Oh, the weight," and I'm like, "No," because I have these straps that this lady makes for me that have elastic, like little bits of elastic in it, so they stretch. So I don't feel,
cord.
Like I don't feel the full weight of the guitar. So it wasn't that, it was something in the resonance of a guitar. Like if I'm like doing anything. So if I'm playing, if this wasn't chambered, right, and I heard this. I would be able to tell that, even if I was blindfolded, like I can hear that kind of air pushing through here. And so for me, I had started playing guitars with F-holes and the semi-hollows and the hollow bodies and stuff. And so after the first signature model did really well, and like I told you off camera, like I made that guitar not thinking, I think when you make your first signature model, you miss every time because you're trying to make a guitar for you. I got my, the thing you drew on your notebooks when you were a kid. That's what you're trying to create, right? So I did a third humbucker. I don't know if you know this. Not a lot of guitar players like third humbuckers. It gets in the way of their picking.
Yes.
Me, I hit
unless
like
you're
this.
Peter Frampton.
Yeah, or me because I just hit like this, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
I would lower it, right? Because the way that third humbucker was wound, it was wound to be more like you're not supposed to talk about another guitar when you're talking about your guitar, but Telly-ish.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I'm a Telly fan. So I would set it lower and I would wind it a certain way so it would kind of have this kind of plucky sound. And when I made this one, it was a combination of like, what do I want and what do I think consumers want? And and that's a hard game to play because you don't, you want to make a guitar you want, but I think a lot of people like the things that I like because I'm not a weird guy. Like I'm very simple, utilitarian. This is what I want. So the main thing for me was the F-hole, the sanded neck.
Yes.
Very important. I sweat. My hands sweat on stage. Nothing else sweats. My hands mostly. The neck. The clear knobs thing I get asked about a lot. So the clear knobs to me are when you have a guitar like this, Paul will put like an amber knob on that. You're adding I've always been into art. To me, you're adding another crayon to that, and I think that's horrible. You're taking away from that. So even this one, all my guitars have clear knobs, right? So because you can still see through the top and you can still get the aesthetic. If I add an amber knob to this, I just added another color to this guitar that doesn't belong there. So for me, I always do the clear knobs. I had to have the PRS stop tail adjustable bridge, which is my favorite bridge of any bridge ever created. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a PRS guy, but I mean, if anybody's ever played this bridge, it is a perfect bridge. I mean, you can move this back and forth, and I do the brass saddles on all mine just because they rings a little bit more. That's a trick I stole from Kenny Wayne Shepherd way back in the day. Yeah. And
that's another thing that goes back to Tellys and brass bridges.
Brass bridges, man. Yeah. That's I'll be PRS for the rest of my life, but if I can incorporate anything Telly into anything, I will, just because I'm a big Telecaster fan. And then the color was really cool because we were the first person to use it because I had walked by and there's a guy there with the name Trampus, who is a stain guy. I believe he works in private stock now at PRS. And he had a bunch of just wood block samples and he had stained a bunch of stuff. My main thing was I want to use a color that no one's used. And he had this and we liked it and we decided we were going to name it after him. And that's kind of where it came from. So it was really cool to us to kind of to have that. So it was, the wide fat neck was obviously important. I kept that on it as the last one, and it's something that I really love a lot. And it, you know, the old school birds, you know, and it's I mean, one of the best selling guitars PRS has.
And it's I mean, it goes without saying, it's a lot of times when you see signature guitars, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars because they're so customized and this and that. But you know, like you said, where you missed on the first one with putting everything in there, you kind of it's overcorrected into a good way, you know.
They won't let me make a new one, that's for sure, because it still sells massive amounts every year. So thank God. Knock on wood. This is real wood, I hope, Paul. That's the joke. It's selling great, and I'm so thankful and so blessed that the people at PRS, you know, it's. I just went there again. I've been to the factory 36 times, you know, and it's to see people who play guitar making guitars on that level is very important, because you know the Gibson factory was in Memphis and I went there and it was like those are people who were working at a restaurant and just like needed another job, and they started working at you know, making these hollow bodies that are $5,000. You know, so to be at a place, and I'm not knocking Gibson. I own Gibsons and I love them, but you know, even without an endorsement, at almost 36 years old and been doing this for 20 years, this is probably the guitar I would still play, just because, you know, I have two 59 Les Pauls and a 58, and this is what they feel like. You know, they kind of have that, you know, and you can take them out of the case and they're in tune and they're ready to go.
Tell us about the guitar here in your lap. So I would imagine, I mean, at the show you have probably more than we have time to go into, but you just kind of grabbed one. Is this your main one that you use in the show, or is this one you just thought would look good on camera?
There is no main one anymore.
Okay.
I guess that's my main. Well, this is you guys's that we're going to give away.
We're going to give away that one.
We're going to give away this one. The prototype for this I still have, and that would be the main one. I only play one guitar for 2 songs in the set, and everything else is one song. Tuning-wise or sound-wise or whatever. So I have 17 out on tour. I'm sorry, Sparky, who's been my tech for 10 years. This is Bethany. We name all of them. Cheesy, I know, but this one is named after my wife because it is the most beautiful guitar I own. I'm not trying to get points. That's just a true thing. It is, I believe this is like faded Northern Lights is the color. Okay. And it's book matched on the back and on the front, and it's got the tiger neck, and it's got the custom built for Zach Myers on the back. I love this thing. It's just a hollow body. It has arch top, the old arch top 2 pickups in it, I believe. 3 knob situation, so 2 volume, 1 tone, 1 master tone.
Do you mess with the tone much in the show, or is it just like, okay?
Yeah, I'm a pinky guy. So when I'm soloing, I use this guitar on one of our singles called "I'll Follow You." So I have a capo on the 1st fret, and I'll solo down here. So I believe that I'll try to play the solo with the capo. I'll kind of back up the tone a little bit, like when I get down here.
Take some of the edge off, you know?
Yeah, just like a little bit of it. If I feel like it's too bright one night, I'll just kind of back it off a little bit. And I kind of do that all night with guitars.
Are you like you mentioned your studio fear, let's say, that's kind of been hopefully alleviated with this last record. When you go into the studio to work out a solo, is it coming from your blues background? Do you feel like you just improvise until you hit something, or do you kind of go away, try to work something out, and then come back and say, okay, guys, here you go. What do you think?
Both.
Okay.
Like I said, I show up and let the foreman, which is the song, tell me what it needs. You know, so, you know, let's take a single like Diamond Eyes. You know, that was 3 takes. And that was 100% me just doing, if I can remember that solo. We play it every night. That was just me being my, like... Like that was for me, that's like that natural.
Now, I don't know if there's intention, but in that solo, I heard Steve Ray Vaughan and I heard Machine Head.
Okay, yeah.
And, right?
Yeah, that walk in. Yeah, 100%. That's
you know?
It's both things. You know, I try to bring everything we're all borrowers.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I try not to make
unless they're Jeff Beck.
Yeah, well, then you're just people just borrow off of you, and they do it terribly, by the way. No one will ever be Jeff Beck, and when people try to do anything like in a Jeff Beck style, it makes me laugh, just because I'm like, just stop. You can't do that. And you know, for me, like, you know, I try to incorporate all those things on a palette without making it blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of my main goal as a guitar player. And you know, I want everybody to play guitar. You know, that's kind of my thing. So it's like I try to do, you know, what I can for that, and you know, whether it's give guitars like this to music foundations in my city and things like that. But you know, to me, I think every kid playing a guitar is, you know, I don't know where I would have ended up had I not been doing this. You know.
All right. Final question, Zach.
Yeah.
Memphis Grizzlies rebuilding year?
I mean, obviously we're rebuilding. You know, it was tough, man. You know, I'm friends with a lot of those guys. So having Mark leave was really rough for me. And I was at the last game, and he gave me a hug, and he walked out, and I was like, this sucks. Because, you know, that guy grew up in Memphis. He went to middle school in Memphis. He went to high school in Memphis. You know, so that guy always been. You know, this is the first time ever in the lineup of the Memphis Grizzlies there's not a Gasol. So it's rough. But you know what? Mike's still there. We have Jaren Jackson. We have some good kids. I think we could have won up enough to get us into the 8th spot. But then you're just going down in 4. Yeah. You know, so it's. I think take one more year. It sucks for me because, you know, like. Do I want us to tank? No, I'm a season ticket holder. I can't sell my tickets when we're tanking. But you know what? I think next year it'll be good. The West is so hard right now.
It'll be a good draft
I think
class.
Houston will figure it out next year too, and I think they'll be up there. I think it's hilarious that the Lakers aren't going to go to the playoffs. It makes me happy so much. And I like LeBron.
Yeah.
You know, I hated him for a long time, just personality-wise. But it's like, listen, you're not going to deny what the guy's so good. But I'm not a LeBron hater, but I think it is funny. I forgot. I read a quote the other day that someone said, you know, and I believe it was a retired guy that was like, you know, it's not about chasing rings anymore. It's about money. Who can get the most money? You don't care if you're not in the playoffs. That's just more time for you to go mess around and have fun during the summer. But like, you know, there's still those hardcore guys out there that still want a ring, you know, and those are the guys I like. And I think LeBron's got a ring. He wanted to live in L.A., so he moved to L.A.
Space
But
Jam
you know
2,
what?
man.
He moved to L.A.
Space Jam 2 ain't going to make itself.
Hopefully. Sign off on that.
Cool.
Me saying hopefully
All right,
Space Jam 2
Zach.
doesn't get made.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank
for
you very
coming out.
much. Yeah, appreciate it.